Welcome again to our August session of Tahoe Silicon Mountain, where we will talk about how an amazing amount of energy was saved by real-time analysis of data. But before we talk about our topic, these events are possible because we have two types of sponsors in addition to our volunteers. One type is our corporate sponsors, and you see them listed here. First of all, New Leaders is our longest running sponsor, more than half a decade. And Robert couldn't make it tonight, the leader of New Leaders. Oh, thank you. And he sent me actually something to make sure that I'm saying the right thing, which is always very helpful. So if you're a sponsor and can't make it, let me know what I should say. So he points out that they create web and mobile apps here in Truckee. And this year they're celebrating 10 years of being in business, have created over 400 custom applications for clients, some of them very successful. And so if you are building a company, want a solid team with experience, ideas, dedication, give New Leaders a call. And it's, of course, newleaders.com. So yeah, we're particularly thrilled about those people sponsoring us and supporting us a long time. Another long-time sponsor is Holland and Hart, and not quite as long yet, but eventually you will get there, hopefully. And Dick has already briefly said what they're doing in the introduction, but maybe I'll just give you the mic and you can say what you're about.
Okay, sure. Well, Holland and Hart, our office, the closest one to here, is in Reno. We're a large general practice firm, and we provide many of the kinds of services that people need for different aspects of business and law. I'm in the intellectual property group, and as I said before, what I do and what my colleagues in that group do is all aspects of intellectual property.
And then there's actually this funny story when in the leadership team we talked about who else could be a sponsor, and then the topic of other law firms came up. But at first we were very concerned because we thought maybe we're going to be sued if we have a competitor entering the sponsorship. But it was actually quite the opposite. Dick not only said that it's fine, he even introduced me to Rich Molesby, who is a partner at Mobile Law. We had a chat, and he said, sure, Tahoe Silicon Mountain, that sounds like the thing he would want to sponsor, and here we are. Thank you, and welcome here. You want to say what your specialty is?
Sure, hello. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Rich Molesby, and our law firm is Mobo Law, and we do a lot of business and estate planning and construction and property and family law, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
The other type of sponsors are individual sponsors who prepay for an annual membership that does include the entry to the evening, the entry fee, and also a free drink. And it really makes life for us easy, and it helps us have kind of a more robust base of sponsors by not just relying on a few more substantial corporate sponsors. So thank you everybody who did that. I noticed that new people have signed up today. Trina, I'm not sure if there was anybody else new signing up. If not, you could still do it later today or next time. We very much appreciate that. So with that, I'm very excited to introduce Anna Klovstad. And this is now an example where it's kind of fun if you live in a small town and you come across people in different parts of your life. All of a sudden you find out what they're really up to and what kind of exciting things they're doing. So our daughters go to the same school, or of course, Truckee High School. Our seniors there together in the environmental club. Her son took piano lessons for my wife. So they're all kind of, we all lived in Germany for part of our life. I even more than you, but still we both did. So this is kind of a small town thing, but behind all this kind of personal things, I learned that Anna has been very instrumental in making big moves in terms of energy savings for the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District. And she is a certified energy manager and works at the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District as the Sustainability and Project Supervisor. Has been employed here for 17 years already. The reason why I'm excited about this topic is because I was thinking back about our very, very first Tahoe Silicon Mountain meeting in April 2010. Anybody any idea what this was about, what the topic was? Maybe not, but I do remember. It was about energy savings through LED lighting in public buildings. And 2010, yes, it's been a while, but really what has happened in the meantime is an amazing revolution. I remember when we had this talk, it was all about subsidizing LED, and yes, no reasonable person would buy it because it's so expensive. And I looked it up, it had only 1% market share, LED sales, in 2010 when we had that Tahoe Silicon Mountain talk. Today, it's a totally different story. The market share is, I looked it up on the internet, somewhere in the 60 to 70% range of lighting, which coming from 1% is one of the fastest adoptions of anything that ever happened in terms of new technology. It's a sign that technology does have an impact and can change the world. It's also a hopeful sign. So I know that Anna and a few of us in the room were quite unhappy that the US pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement. But at the end of the day, I think what probably has a bigger impact is smart new technology that can lead to huge energy savings and sustainability in the environmental causes, no matter what the government thinks or says. So I'm very excited to hear how that specifically worked here in our school district. Thank you. You have your mic.
So for any of you that actually live in the Truckee-Donner PUD territory, you probably have LEDs in your home. And if you don't, you need to go down to the PUD and get some free light bulbs because they give them away. And I'm going to just plug that because they are one of our fantastic sponsors and supporters of our program. I'll get to that in the end. But in the meantime, in preparation for this presentation, I actually watched some of the Mountain Minds Monday introductions and sessions of the past. And then I read up on some of you. And with the exception of Julius, who apparently isn't here today, but he never does anything, right? Julius? I don't do a damn thing is what his introduction was every time. But the rest of you are very, very active. And that's exciting to me. I'm humbled by the breadth and the knowledge that I have seen in all of your portfolios. And there's, of course, overlap, just like between Johannes and I in our lives. There's overlap in so many of the organizations that we're all involved in. And so some of them that I saw was Sierra Green Business Council, of course, Achieve Tahoe, Sierra Watershed Education Partnerships, Truckee River Watershed Council, Tahoe Rim Trail Association, Keep Truckee Green, Tahoe Fund, and there were many others. And this just speaks to that community that clearly all of you are active participants in, and that to me is just amazing. So with all of that in common, I'm hoping that I can make a small confession. So my presentation isn't a whole hour or even 45 minutes, so I'm hoping you guys ask questions. And one of the ways I'm hoping to inspire that, because I noticed also in the previous presentations and introductions, there's no dessert. So I brought some dessert, and anybody that asks a question gets some dessert. How's that? And I'm really sorry for all the people streaming on YouTube, but you can go get some ice cream and we'll all be happy. All right, so some TTUSD fun facts. Tahoe Truckee Unified School District is a pretty small school district, especially compared to some of the others in the state and to our neighbors in Washoe County. So a lot of us play multiple roles, and I am no exception to that. So that's another confession. I'm really a construction manager, and I I play a sustainability manager on TV today, and in my spare time at the district. So all the construction that you guys see down at the base of Northwoods, that's my full-time job, and this is my passion. But it actually really works well for me, because this is how I take my passion and enliven my work to benefit the community. And that's what I want to share with you tonight, and I hope you enjoy the story. Here's one last confession, and I promise that's it. I'm actually here on a selfish mission. After reading all of your profiles and hearing some of the introductions of the past, I'm like, you know what, this group can probably help me figure out ways to get this out into the community more. I really want to have more active participation in my dashboards. I want to have more people sending me information and ideas and things that they see that are not working properly. And I'm struggling with that because I'm a construction manager. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a curriculum development person. I don't even play a role in the executive board. I manage projects and I manage buildings. So as we're going through this presentation, I hope you do shout out your ideas, or I've got a stack of cards here, and I'd love for you to reach out to me in the future. So that's my last confession of the evening. All right, a culture of conservation. That's really what I've been working on developing, not just energy savings, because what we need is a much broader perspective of this. My journey really began in 2008 in the downturn of the economy. Anybody remember that? And the school district, you may or may not know, 85% of its budget goes to personnel. So when we were seeing this budget crunch coming, it was inevitable that we were going to be faced with massive layoffs. So quite literally, there was a group of managers, and I was sitting at the table with them, and we were brainstorming, how can we save money for the school district and avoid as many layoffs as possible? And I foolishly raised my hand and said, I think we can save some money on energy. And they're like, okay, go ahead and try. So that first year, I saved $200,000. That was 15% reduction in our energy usage, and it got their attention. And that was just with gas and electricity. So it was pretty quickly after that that people started reaching out to me in other ideas and areas of where they could, where we could create more sustainability and more energy savings and money savings. And one of the big ones that we then hit next was recycling. So this is our sustainability page on our website, and I am going to back up the slide again. I'm actually going to see if I can navigate to, yep, here we are. This is our Tahoe Truckee Unified School District, some of our very cute kids. And just want to show you guys, if you want to come and look at any of this stuff on our sustainability program, this is how you would get to. You go to programs, and then here we have sustainability and conservation. And as you scroll down, you're going to see a little link to our dashboard, and that's what we're talking about tonight. There's also a bunch of other really fun stuff, like there's, articles of things that we've done that have been published in the news. You can actually go specifically and see some of the energy savings projects and download some of our benchmark reports. You can go to what everybody really loves is the education and outreach portion, where you see the Envirolution Club members, and you can look at videos that we've done. So there's all sorts of great information, but of course, one of our favorite pages there is our sponsors page, because nobody can do this alone. So we like to give credit to the people that help us make this possible, because this is, even though we save money on energy, we put that money back into saving more energy. So the money that we save and the rebates that we get, we reinvest that back into more projects. So the programs on the sustainability side and the education piece, those need to be funded. So we like to align it with our educational goals. So we've got valedictorian funding, we've got distinguished scholar funding, and of course, honor roll. And I've got more information up here if anybody's interested in participating in that at some point. And we're going to go back to the presentation, hopefully. Nope, from current slide. Okay, there we go. So then we go into our philosophy. In the beginning, we really just took small steps. Believe it or not, that first $200,000 was accomplished to just better scheduling our schools. We had gotten into the complacent habit of just letting things run because then nobody complained about them being cold, right? Incredibly inefficient way of managing our buildings. So that's really the large portion of that first $200,000. And then it was not long after that, like we said, we got into waste reduction and we started saving money there as well. And then from there, people just really started exploding with ideas. We went into green purchasing, water conservation, environmental stewardship programs, which is the Green Teams, Envivolution Club, Eco Action Clubs that hopefully you guys have heard about. We adopted a no idling policy. We adopted a styrofoam ban within the school district. We started educating on native plants and species, and of course, watershed protection with our partnership with Sierra Watershed Education Partnerships. So those were the kind of how we began the program, and as you can see, these were just some of the very simple steps that we took. Next, we're going to go to a video. Last year, Tahoe Truckee Unified School District applied for California Green Ribbon Schools, and I don't expect anybody here to have heard of it because I'm in sustainability and I hadn't even heard of it. But we put together this massive application that it was like a dissertation. It was just amazing. And this award is given to school districts that have demonstrated established sustainability programs and environmental education programs. So in our first year of applying, we got awarded the gold level. We were ranked third in the state of California for sustainability programs. And we were blown away. We were actually the first school district to accomplish that. Most school districts apply and they get recognition level and then silver or bronze, and they kind of work their way up to gold. And our school district got gold on the very first try. We were pretty proud of that. So encouraged by that our goal now is to be either first or second in the state next year, as we're going to reapply. And what that gets us is into the national competition, and we'll see how we rank nationally. But for sure, we get a trip to Washington, D.C. out of it, and we're pretty excited about that. So wish us luck. And now we're going to go to the video.
TTUSD received the Gold Award from the U.S.
TTUSD received the Gold Award from the U.S. Department of Education for sustainable efforts as a Green Ribbon School District. We believe that sustainability efforts have triple the value when students are empowered to be part of the conservation progress and projects. A win for the environment, money savings, students learn through experience and take practices home. Tahoe Truckee Unified School District and Sierra Watershed Education Partnerships have a 20-year history in connecting students to their local community and environment through service learning projects. Our sustainability efforts began to flourish when funding partners took notice of our true waste, water, and energy reduction progress.
And how many watts is it using right now? 44. 44 watts to produce about the same amount of light as the other bulbs.
More partners followed. The award took collaborative effort and progress.
Reduce, reuse, recycle!
Many people worked very hard to help TTUSD in being recognized as a Green Ribbon School District. Many departments within the TTUSD play a vital role in all of our sustainability efforts and continued progress. True cost savings with true energy savings. The strength of our collaboration and the momentum of all our progress and recognition carries us into exciting projects ahead, such as the Drought Response Outreach Program with over 9 sustainability teams.
Erosion is a problem that we hope will be solved with the restoration projects.
This collaborative effort and its environmental benefits are all ribbon-worthy. But the gold of this award lies within how our students, the community stewards, will carry this experience into the future.
Are you ready to join us in reducing our school waste?
Okay, well that gave you guys some time to think. Does anybody have any questions so far? Because I've got this whole bag of candy sitting here. Yes, sir.
Right.
Oh.
Wait for graduation?
Oh, you know what I bet is going on? It's still playing. Sorry, guys. Yeah, okay.
How much cooperation do you have from local energy companies?
From utility companies?
Utility companies, yes.
Phenomenal support, particularly with Truckee Donner PUD. They provide support for not just our rebates. They give us a 1/3 rebate, cost of the rebate for most of our projects, or they'll do a customized rebate. And their philosophy there is that everybody's taxpayer dollars goes to pay the district's utility bills. So the less that we pay, the more benefit there is to the entire community. So they're huge supporters in the energy reduction program. They also, they actually gave me a rebate to start the dashboard because they saw that as a tool that I could use to help reduce energy. And they do donations to the Envirolution Club when they go around and do the trash-in shows. And they hand out light bulbs or zero waste lunch containers or things like that. They're really fantastically supportive in all of that. And then Liberty Utilities, for years, has done my benchmarking reports for free. And so they provide that service to me, which is a huge benefit. I use those almost weekly as I'm going through and looking at energy reduction ideas. And then of course they have a very robust rebate program that we also utilize very heavily.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you get two because they're connected.
With all the building that's going on, where are people going to park when it's done?
There will be ample parking when it's done. Where, you know where the old district office and the warehouse was? that will all become a parking lot. It's right now being used for construction service area, but it's going to become a parking lot. You'll see it paved very soon.
Will you have covered shade that's got solar on top of it?
No, we will not.
You should.
We would love to, and I was really hoping somebody was going to ask that solar question, so thank you so much. The school district, would love to do solar. We have one, and I'll show it to you in the slides. We have one demonstration solar project. The problem here is we are governed by the Division of the State Architect, not the local building officials. And the Division of the State Architect looks at schools similar to it does to firehouses and hospitals. We have to build to a much higher threshold of safety. And so the structural requirements that are put upon us for the safety of these buildings are pretty extraordinary. And I have done extensive research on it. First, of course, everybody wants to build parking structures, but we have to have the snow shed off of them in order to be able to get the benefit of them, right? We don't like snow shedding at school districts because it can shed on kids, and that can be really bad. So in general, that doesn't work. So next goes the covered parking. So then we started looking at it at school. Well, then you have snow shedding on top of a building, and it does a differential loading. That becomes really a challenge for us in snow loads, because if you could imagine a winter like we just had, we already had to shovel the roofs of the buildings, and so to try to do that in certain areas that were even twice as high would have been really, really difficult. And then the third problem with putting them on the roofs is then you have penetrations in all the roofs. And because we like to keep our snow on our roofs, because we don't like it to shed, and it provides tremendous thermal value, we look at our roofs as basically swimming pools on the top of our buildings. We really try to not have any penetrations, because any penetration allows for that snow melt to then potentially penetrate and disrupt the building. And it's really hard to do a lot of penetrations well, especially ones with solar panels that would have to be 20 feet above the roof line in order to be above the snow, and with wind loads and various other things. So we also looked at ground mount systems. And we were actually actively pursuing that again until this last winter, and we realized we needed every square inch that we had for snow storage. So we're kind of back to ground zero with that, but maybe someday we can make it work somehow. Thank you for that question. Yes? Oh, sorry, in the back. We got you coming.
Actually, I'll pass my candy. Yeah, related to parking, actually, it's really phenomenal to me. I know it's not possible for everyone. We have a very distributed suburban population, I guess, but how few kids and parents ride their bikes to school, even in a community like Glenshire. I mean, it's amazing to me how few bikes are really there. And I'm wondering if you or anybody that you work with has considered a district-wide effort to get more kids and families to ride their bikes instead of drive the SUV to the drop-off.
Very much so. When we began to consider the no idling policy, that was something that we talked about as well. And the other component of that we've talked about heavily is trying to get more students on the buses rather than all these individual cars. Not only is that a greater carbon footprint, but it also creates congestion on our campuses. It creates more carbon emissions right next to those classrooms where we typically have the windows open because we don't have central ventilation in most of our schools. And it creates wear and tear on our campuses. So we would really like to see more carpooling, more bus riding, more alternative transportation. And it's something that we targeted in our Green Ribbon schools as, hey, I think we're weak in this area, and it's something that we plan to work on in this next school year.
That's great. I have a related suggestion. I know we get a voicemail and an email from the school district literally every week. And in the 4 or 5 years that we've been involved with the school district, I have yet to see a single mention about bicycling, carpooling, or using the bus more. So that might be a good way to.
That is an excellent suggestion. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Okay, it's coming at you.
Free question.
Yes, Ken.
First, congratulations on achieving such, huge energy savings from 2008 to now.
Thank
you. Got a lot of low-hanging fruit right away.
Yes.
So looking forward, what are your top 3 things in terms of energy savings and carbon footprint reduction for you? And then that's part 1 of the question. Part 2 of the question is, where do you see sponsorship from political organizations or the government or your people paying for the bills in terms of the metrics? What matters most? Is it utility savings? Is it carbon footprint savings? Is it decreased traffic from the community? How do you see what matters most to those who pay the bills?
To those who pay the bills, or to those that are involved in the program?
To those who are providing your budget.
Okay, interesting. That I will have to get back to you on, because I will have to ask them that question. I think really what, for the people paying the bills in the school district, it's the bottom line. It's how much are they writing those checks for every month. And yet, as you saw with belief number 7, our board has a clearer appreciation for the fact that we live in a very unique environment, and that we are charged with protecting it. And as educators, we are the educational facility in this community, that we need to be educating on environmental stewardship and conservation as well. So I think there's probably a few different schools. Like if you talk to the director of curriculum, it's going to be the education piece. If you talk to the CBO, it's going to be the bottom line. What are we writing the checks for? If you talk to me, it's all about CO2 reduction. That's where it's really at, because that's what's really going to make change, regardless of how many LED bulbs I change out.
So top 3 goals going forward.
Yeah.
What would your top 3 be?
So we're really focused on, because we've got this thing called Proposition 39 funding, which gives us money every year and allocation every year. And our school district gets about $150,000 to $200,000 a year. So I'm really focused on using that money to do the best return on investment projects. We still have a lot of LED lights to switch out. I'm looking at pump replacement projects. I'm looking at boiler replacement projects. I'm looking at building envelope improvements. So, we're really looking at the whole gamut of things. And the lighting is always the quick and easy one. But for me, there's things like replacing water heaters that are already 15, 20 years old, and those are a deferred maintenance indenturement. So I'm looking at replacing those with small condensing boilers, and even though it doesn't have as good of a return on investment or ROI as the LED, it has the added benefit of helping the maintenance department create more longevity with their equipment. So I look at a big balance of things. I try to make sure that we have, kind of like the healthy plate, a little bit of everything. All right, great questions. Thanks, you guys. I'm so grateful. All right, tonight we're actually going to be looking at 2 products. There's a dashboard, and then there's this background kind of engineering report running program. And there's a bit of a difference. If you can kind of look through that, the big difference here is the dashboard is accessible at any time from anybody, and I showed you how to get to that from our TTUSD website. Let's see, where are we? Because we've been just jumping all around. Both these systems provide real-time energy use. They, through meter readers that are installed on the main service line for both gas and electricity at each one of our facilities. Water readings are provided daily as a upload from here's the web links too, in case you want to write those down, or they'll be part of the presentation. So the water usage comes from the Truckee Donner PUD. They upload it to us daily, so there's a little bit of a lag time. And then we also have waste reduction and grants being monitored as well. So here's kind of how the two of them look, obviously a little bit different. The dashboard here is really meant to be used by anybody from kindergarten all the way through to our PhD staff members. It's got good data that anybody can relate to, and I'll explain that as we move through. And then the building OS, on the other hand, that's really the analytics, where I go to figure out, when I see something looking strange, I go there to figure out a little bit more closely what it might be. So jumping into it, what I have here is a bunch of screen captures because I wasn't sure how quick my stuff would load. So once we get through these, then we'll go live and we can kind of play around, and you guys can ask more questions or just play around with the system. But what we're looking at here is this is showing dollars spent for that particular day on electricity and at all the sites. And so here you've clicked on this one basically, and it's going to bring that up, and you can change a few different things about this. You can instead of looking at electricity, you can look at water, or you can look at natural gas. And then this is showing up in dollars, but you can also change that to other different equivalents that I'll show in a little bit. And then you can change the time, the day, the week, the month, the year. So that's kind of what the front dashboard looks like. And then if you were to go and click on this one instead, natural gas, right next to it. And this is looking at kilobtu's, which that's what I look at, but not everybody's interested in talking about kilobtu's. So this is showing the gas usage over a 24-hour period. You have 11 a.m. all the way to midnight. And the dots are showing you what had happened the day before, and then the bars are showing you what had happened that day so far. So I ran this report at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and the first thing I notice when I look at this is, wow, what was going on at 2 a.m. that ignited the gas usage? So that was probably, this is for our North Tahoe site, and we have this massive tank-style water heater, and that's probably what it was. And I look at that and I think, I'd really like to get a condensing boiler in there, or maybe an Insta-Hot. So those are things that start me thinking about what my next projects might be. So you can also take a look at this if you're not interested in kilobtu's. You can see it in cubic feet. You can see it in carbon emissions. You can see it in CFL hours, toaster oven hours, hand dryers, gasoline, light bulb hours, laptop hours, miles driven. So they really try to make it something that might be interesting or relatable to a variety of different people. So this is, now we're looking at carbon output, because some people are interested in that, for this month. That's what this is looking at. So you've got the days of the week. Whoops. And I just advanced my slides. It's a good thing I know how to go backwards. We're looking at the days of the week here, days of the month. And the dots, again, are showing the previous month's usage. And then this one is showing this month's usage. Now, a couple things I want to point out here. See these two little dots down below and these two little dots down below? What do you think those are? Weekends, right. And so I look for that. I want to know that this building is shutting down on the weekends. And if I don't see that, then I know something's wrong. So that's another indicator. And then you can see here the days that we might have used more electricity or we've had more carbon output than that specific day the previous week. But in this case, the previous week was, on the first and second, those were weekends, right? And this too, you can also see it in kilowatt hours, pounds of coal, laptop hours, miles driven, and this one you can see in hamburgers too. Because the creators knew that there was somebody out there that wanted to know how many hamburgers it took to run one of our buildings. So here we're actually doing a comparison of two different school sites, Truckee Elementary and Glenshire Elementary. So obviously here we've got more usage of water in May, June, and July, and coming up on August. No big surprise there, right? Because we don't water fields in the winter up here. They're kind of under snow. Why do you think there's such a difference between Truckee Elementary and Glenshire, though? Yes?
Summer school.
Summer school is one thing, and then there's another contributing factor. Yes?
Larger fields.
Exactly. Glenshire has a pretty large field use, and we water that too. So both of those things combined, this is not surprising or alarming to me at all. I would expect to see that there. And this is showing millions of water bottles, because kids relate to a water bottle, right? They don't necessarily relate to gallons like we would, but they also, you can portray this in toilet flushes and shower hours and washer loads. So they try to make it interesting. So this is something that would be totally normal to see. All right, and then here we have our one photovoltaic output. So this is showing the kilowatt hours produced in an entire year. So as you can see, at just over 9,000 kilowatt hours, it's not a very robust system. That's a little bit less than what the average American household uses in a year. But it's very good tool for us for educationally. And the nice thing is because of this interface, every single school site can go to this and collect data and analyze data and understand what a photovoltaic system is and how it helps us. This is installed at the Kings Beach Boys and Girls Club, in case anybody wasn't sure. So this actually is my favorite part of the dashboard. It's the green features. And I'm going to go ahead and go live to it here if I can. That's what this is right here. And what this is showing is we basically document everything that we do at the district that has a sustainable evolution or sustainable practice. Nope, that's what we wanted. And we're going to go escape, and we're going to go here. So if we go to green features, we'll see how quickly this loads. There we go, not too bad. You can go in and click in and see, learn all about the different student engagement clubs, like the Truckee High School Envirolution. Has anybody here seen a Trashin' show? Pretty fun, aren't they? So they're our big messengers. When we want to get the word out, that's who does it for us. The green teams are the elementary school kids, and that's really where it all began. We began with our first green team back in 2010, and we've been going strong ever since. You can also go to things like our food service department and what they're doing in order to reduce carbon footprint and improve the environment. Things like Meatless Mondays. All of our menu items on Mondays are vegetarian. They're talking about, we're working on drink dispensers. One of our biggest wasters is those milk cartons that the kids take 2 sips of and then throw the rest away. It's pretty frustrating. So that's probably one of my favorite things. And then we have building features. Some of you might be interested in this. These are our ECM pump, electronically computated motors, which we're replacing all of our main motors with right now, going through the system. And that's just going to spin for a while, I guess. It doesn't like that picture. Then there's green tips, which are pretty fun. Yeah, and I try to always, we've got these as touch screens in a few of our buildings, and I try to always leave it on this one because they eventually just kind of scroll through and people get some pretty fun ideas. And I don't see that they're gonna, there they go, they're advancing. So they're just little tidbits that if you read them, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's a good point, or that's a good idea, or that's a simple change that I could make in my life, right? Who was involved in the was it Earth Day's theme several years back was DOT, do one thing, right? And that's what these are. These are basically dots. If you were going to make one behavior change in your life that would be easy for you to do, what would it be? And these are kind of a list of ideas and concepts. And then, of course, you know, we have the weather. You can always get to the weather, because that actually gets a few people to our dashboards. Because again, you guys, I'm trying to figure out ways to get more people to our dashboard. So, from the current slide, let's do that. All right, so that's the interface that all of you can get to. Now we go into the building analytics side. And this is kind of the suite of apps that they have available to the users. And by the way, I have unlimited users on this, so if anybody's interested, send me an email. I can send you an invitation, and you can come and cruise through our information. I give you just kind of viewer access only. But if you find something interesting in here, you're feel free to take a look at it. This I knew was not going to turn up very well, so I did put some of these out on the table if anybody's interested in looking at actually being able to read what this slide says. Oh, it's not so bad up here. So one of my favorite features about the Building OS is that it sends an email to me with this report as many times as I want it. So the way I have it set up is we have 12 to 13 school sites right now. And so every day I get 2 to 3 reports like this for a single school site. And then the next day I get 2 to 3 with new school sites, right? So every day I have this very quick view of what's going on at that school site that week. And as you'll see how it looks when it unfolds throughout the month. So actually, if I may, I'm going to grab one of them myself and go through it a little bit. So the top one here, this one right here, top left-hand corner, that's showing our consumption. And so that's different than what you will see down below, which is what we're spending. So everybody understand the difference of that? And the reason why this is important is because, in particular, the cost of gas has been fluctuating. I mean, there's times where I pay $1.50 a therm, there's times where I pay 97 cents a therm. And that can have a pretty big difference on the cost. But what I'm really interested in is our consumption. Because if I see the prices going down, that's great. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm using less gas. So it's an important distinction. So I look at it both ways. I have it in this report in both ways because I want to see the consumption, but my CBO wants to see the dollars. So the first one is just showing the consumption of kilowatt hours and BTUs usage that week. This happens to be Glenshire Elementary. And then the next one down, it actually adds in water, so the cost of water. And you can see that in the different graph charts. And this, typically, the green here is typically a lot bigger, but because it's summer, we're not seeing very much gas usage. But quite honestly, typically that's my biggest bar. As soon as we're into November, December, that's the biggest bar. And then you go down here, you see water consumption, and that's pretty typical, and I'll see that flatten out here shortly. Up here, this upper right-hand corner in this piece of paper, this is showing you that week's usage. Now, since I ran this report, for this presentation, it doesn't have a full week, so it's a little bit skewed. It says 11% savings, which, because it doesn't have the full data on that final page, right? It's not showing the full amount. But I like to see that because, again, it's looking at the kilowatt hours, and it actually tells me, did I use more energy or less energy this week in comparison to the last week? The next one down below that here, that's the same calculation, but for gas. Did I use more gas or less gas than the week before? And that's an important thing for me to know. And then on the back side, which is the next one here, then that's looking at us year to date. So this is giving us the information from January 1st, 12 a.m. to August 9th, August 9th, at some point in time, 2017, compared to that exact same period the year before in 2016. So here, that's a very good number. I'm very happy with that 14% savings that you'll see right here. And I'll tell you why that happened in just a minute. Then you go down to the next one, the gas usage, right here, we've got a 13% increase. I'm not so excited about that. So that's something that I need to look into. So this is kind of giving you the overall snapshot of what's going on at that school site. On the right-hand side, that's giving you a comparison to where it is in the other schools. And that's how I know things like what schools have summer school, because you're going to see a lot more usage. The Boys and Girls Club there at the top, they're fully occupied, 5 days a week, all day long, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So it's no surprise to me that their energy use is really high. I would be surprised if Donner Trail suddenly had high energy use because they're closed for the summer, right? So these are the things that I'm looking at here. Any questions on this part? Yes, sir.
Do you have individuals at each of your school sites that are responsible for the energy? They have some responsibility or some overall capacity of the energy consumption and water consumption? Yeah. Sorry, I forgot my own rule.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll repeat my question. Do you have any individuals at each of the school sites that are responsible for the overall energy and water consumption?
I wish I did. I'm working, because our maintenance staff is not assigned to a specific facility. They get assigned to go to facilities, but not to a specific facility. We do have a head custodian at each facility, and I'm working closely with them. But they don't have ownership of it. They also don't have any incentive for it. So I'm working on that. I'm working on helping them get a little piece of this pie at some point if they show an energy reduction, because it's people like that, eyes and ears on the site, that can really make a big difference. So that's a really good point. Others, yes?
Questions. How has the report, this convenient kind of dashboard, changed how you manage the energy from what you did before? And then another question is, in terms of off-peak energy pricing, are you taking advantage of that with this data insight to either cool or heat water when it's cheaper to do so?
So we don't have storage, and I'm looking into doing battery storage and trying to combine that with off-peak charging. And we're looking at doing that with the elementary school because it's a very consistent use pattern. The challenge with that is it typically, we actually use more gas than we do electricity, and battery storage really only helps with electricity use. And then on top of that, again, working against us with the photovoltaics, the highest generation of photovoltaics and the potential battery storage combination with it is in the summer when we're not in session. So there's limited opportunities for us, but what I do use this for, to get to your first question, is looking at those peak demands. And I'll get into that in one of our future slides, because that's really where we see huge charges imposed on the district for demand charges, especially on electricity.
One last, when you cited 14% savings there, compared to the year, does that account for the thermal load at the time, or is that just month to month?
Ah, you are going to so enjoy my heat maps. Give me a chance to get there, my friend, and here we are. This does take into consideration the thermal load on the building. So this probably is my favorite app to go to. I'm just going to give a little explanation of what we're looking at here, orienting people. Right along this axis, you can see them accumulated by the month. So each one of these lines is a specific day. And then across this axis, it's the time of the day. So 12 a.m. to 12 p.m., right? And then over here, this is heating and cooling degree days. And so just for the benefit of the general public, a heating degree day is the number of degrees that day is below 65 degrees, which is the point at which we assume we need heating. And then a cooling degree day is essentially the reverse of that. It's the number of degrees of that day above 65, at which point we consider we need cooling. And so the blue is the cooling and the red is the heating. Makes sense, right? So I'm sure you've all kind of figured out what's going on here. This is energy use. The green is the least amount of energy. The red is the most amount of energy. And so this facility, it happens to be our transportation facility, and there's some very interesting things happening here. When we get to the live version and you hover over it, it actually gives you the exact day, time, and consumption being used. So it's really kind of handy that way. But right here, I'll just hover it over it. This is June 23rd. That was our last day of school. And anybody have any idea what happened? So this is a fascinating thing to me. We plug in our buses, and we have to heat the engine blocks on our buses so that they start in the morning. So at that point, they turned off the engine block heaters. And look at that difference of energy usage. So clearly, there's an opportunity for energy savings. Now, we used to have this set up on a timer, and it was better controlled, but something happened there. So you can see, you think you got this thing set up, and then something happens, and you have to go back and fix it. The other thing to talk about here is, see how this, the last week of July, and even the first week of August is still pretty orange. It's still quite a lot of usage, right? Well, the occupancy of that facility hasn't changed all summer. But what is happening here? Like, wow, suddenly there's a lot less energy usage. So what happened there is we finished a lighting retrofit project, and I get all giddy about this because it's so exciting for me to see. That's the real repercussions of the LEDs that started back in 2010, incorporating into facilities. Well, now we just turned that whole facility into nothing but LEDs, and it has a huge impact. So I'm pretty excited about that. One more slide on heat maps because they're so cool. This is actually what I would consider a well-scheduled facility where you have pretty high energy use in the mornings. It tapers off in the afternoons. You see clear weekends where the time is shut down or the building is in setback mode. You don't see energy use at night. And then anybody have any idea what these little extra energy usages are? They're always on Mondays. So we have it programmed in that we do an extra little warm-up on Mondays because our buildings idle down so much over the weekends that we were seeing a lot of space heater usage on Monday mornings. So we just started warming our buildings up a little early, and boom, we've fixed that problem. So this is called a portfolio drift, and this is basically showing what each of those facilities are, rough square footage. So you can see Truckee High School and North Tahoe High School are about the same square footage. And it's showing us whether or not it used more electricity or less electricity compared to its previous period. And so this actually, I'm ashamed to admit, I'm not happy with this portfolio drift. I want all of our buildings to be blue or yellow. Like, I want them all to be using less or equal to the amount. So I've got some work to do here. But the two that I can point out, the Sierra Educational Learning School, or Expeditionary Learning School in the district office, and Glenshire, using less energy because that's where we did lighting projects. But you can see in some of the other areas, we used between 2 and 25% more electricity in the rest of those facilities, so I have some work to do there. Yes?
Very interesting. Along with the energy savings and decreasing, what has happened with student and teacher comfort and satisfaction?
So I think the more that we work on our building management system, the more satisfaction that we have, and we've got a little bit of a gap in there because we had a building management manager that we were not happy with, and we've had to transition. So we're in a transition there with that. But early on in the program, we did a board resolution and we set our parameters. We said we're going to heat to 68 degrees and we're going to cool to 74. So as long as we're meeting that range, that's the comfort level that we would expect our occupants to exist by. And we don't expect anybody to occupy a 50 or 60 degree building, we're going to heat to that 68 degrees. Yes, sir.
Do you have any methods to incent individual students or faculty or staff members to come forward with ideas to save in energy or water consumption?
Part of this Green Ribbon program is it's allowed me to get out there a little bit more in front of them, and we've started a energy at TTUSD.org, and actually anybody can email that, as a matter of fact, and that comes to me and one other person, where you can send your ideas, or hey, I saw the lights on Saturday night at 10 o'clock, or whatever your thoughts are, you can send that to energy@ttusd.org, and we can do
as
something.
far as incentives or recognition for those people, or
So
say a student came up with an idea to turn one of those orange blocks green or yellow.
So one of the great things about the dashboard is it does have a competition tab, and we haven't utilized that, and that is, again, another thing that we saw as an opportunity in this next round of sustainability programs. We'd like to do a separate one for custodians, a separate one for maintenance, a separate one for staff, and a separate one for students, so that each category can get recognized for their ideas. That's our plan. But it's not going yet. We're working on it. Yes.
One thing we've always wanted, and it might take a little bit of energy, is a lighted board that would show when the athletic games are. Nobody knows when these different games are unless you know somebody on the team. And we like to go to the games.
That's a really good point. So we have wanted to do internally lit boards in the past, and we technically have the authority to do that because the local governing agency, the town, doesn't have jurisdiction over us. But we like to be good neighbors, and it's not consistent with the town of Truckee's planning ordinances, so we have not done that. But I do invite you to go to TTUSD.org and go to the calendar, and you can find them there. It's not as easy, though. Yes.
Do you have any plans in the future to track the ancillary advantages? In other words, as you're raising the engagement of the local community, they're taking some of these ideas, I imagine, back to their homes, and sort of to be able to sort of track, again, energy use, not just in schools, but in your community, based on what you've done here.
So that's the brilliance that Stephen Poncelet and the Truckee-Donner PUD have tapped into and saw from the very beginning. They knew that if they gave a kid some light bulbs, and they were going to bring them home and teach that to their parents. So I know they've done some surveys to see, the repercussions of that, like how far has it gone, if they have the parents actually called and done an energy audit and things like that, but we have not done that, but I know that they have. But we have other programs like DROPS, so that's Drought Outreach Program for Schools, or Drought Response Outreach Program for Schools. And we will be doing some of that as part of that program. So that's a state-funded grant that we got, $1 million, to do low-impact development improvements to Truckee High School and Kings Beach. And those programs, we do education and outreach as part of that too. And then again, we'll be doing the research to find out, how many community members actually found out about it. Yeah. All right, just a couple more slides here. Trend analysis. I know you guys have been dying to see this one, right? All right, so this is really showing the reduction that we gained from the lighting project at Glenshire Elementary. So you can see we were kind of using the same amount here, and then we actually finished the lighting project in 2016 in late August or early September. And then you can see here, these next few months, we show a reduction, and that's due to the lighting project. And then the other interesting data here is, you can see how many kilowatt hours. We spent $39,000 on electricity at Glenshire Elementary, and then we've got a total consumption reduction of 37%. Load profile analysis, this is really geeky, but I really like it. This axis is showing consumption. This axis is showing the hours of the day. And this is particularly looking at Sierra High School electricity usage the last 30 days just on the weekends. And they divide this up so that I can see whether, what's still happening on the weekends and what else we can do to lower that energy usage. And so you can see here, this building is kind of strange. It uses the least amount of energy during the daytime hours, and then it has some strange spike between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. So we're looking into that. And that's on the weekends. We're like, wow, what's going on there? And then down below, you can actually see the specifics of the different readings or the different totals. So here's one of Alder Creek Middle School during the week, electricity usage. Now this looks more normal. You're seeing a spike during the occupied hours, and then it idles down. And this also shows you the red is the peak times, the green is the minimum usage, and the average is the orange in the middle. And then I'm, of course, always looking at that green saying, how do I get to there every day? That's what I'm trying to do. And yes, sir?
I'm familiar with a lot of the districts in Nevada, and they've gone to 4-day-a-week school weeks to conserve on bus transportation costs and other costs. And a lot of them have done it, especially the rural districts. Has that been considered here at all?
Not that I'm aware of. That would be an interesting one to bring up to the board and Dr. Leary. Yeah. Yeah, we have snow days instead.
So they just do longer Monday through Thursday, and then they don't have school typically.
I wonder how that works with athletics, though, too. I'm sure that has an impact on it. Interesting concept. So real quick here, this is just a comparison of 1 week to the last week, and it's showing all of my schools. And this is, I look at this pretty often, and particularly when I've got a school holiday. I want to make sure that those buildings are using less energy the week that we're on vacation than the week that we were fully occupied. So just a quick view. And again, we can do this in natural gas or electricity. And whether or not the building shut down on a snow day is another thing that I'll see here. So these are some other features that I don't use most of these. I'm about to use some of the project measurement and verification, but I thought I'd put this up here in case other people were interested. This system really has a lot of capability, including doing trends and looking at tenant management. We pay all of our own bills, but if you had a building that you had tenants in, you can do that with it too. So, in conclusion, this is really a tool, and it has to be accessed and managed regularly. The more people using it, seeing it, thinking about it, the more potential we have to save. And then, of course, partners are key. Like you talked about, giving credit to them. We're always working with our maintenance departments, our custodians, food services, trying to create more efficiency. And occupant engagement really matters. It makes a difference. So again, if anybody has any ideas, it's my email and my phone number. I've got a stack of cards here. And then my last thing is we have our sponsors to thank. And these are just some of them. This is a little brochure on the Green Ribbon School Award. So I'm going to leave some of these out here too. And they've also got a lot of great information about ways that you can participate in the program. Any last questions?
I also have a last question, but that is not, but you can also have one.
Oh, of course. You bet.
So there's a question here. Mm-hmm.
So I'm extremely impressed with all of this, especially that it's like a side gig for you.
Yeah.
I'm like really wondering how you manage all of this in your spare time or as a side gig. And also you had a slide just up for a moment of the sponsors. I was really curious, so I'm sure the majority of them are very interested in energy conservation, energy reduction, climate change, things like that. Are they actually funding the development of the technology that you're using?
Yeah.
Wow. So that's my main question then, is how is that being funded and managed if this is like a side gig for you?
So initially I purchased the dashboard and the licensing for 5 years with my first Prop 39 funds with what they called planning funds, that in association with a very generous rebate from Truckee Donner PUD. And that's why their little logos at the bottom of every single slide, or the dashboard itself. So they were huge supporters in that. That's how we started this, and really I was purchasing a product that actually has been evolving ever since I've used it, the Lucid dashboard system. And then the sponsorships are really going towards the education piece of it, the sustainability clubs, the Envirolution Club, the field trips that they do, to the tools that we buy, like the little LED demonstration that you saw in the video. That's what the supporters and the grants go towards. And actually Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, they're like our best Kickstarter. Every time we have an idea, like we wanted to use reusable utensils. We didn't want to be doing the throwaway plastic sporks. So they gave us seed money to try that, to do a trial. They did the same with plastic plates and reusable trays. They've done the same with giving us money to do a test or a trial run of the milk dispensers. So we have all these crazy ideas, and we go out to the community and they support us. It's the greatest thing.
Thank you. Before we finish, two things. Number one, I've tried to use my iPhone to go to the live stream and get comments or questions from people who are watching us live. I'm not sure I did it right, because usually Garrett does it. I haven't seen anything. Is somebody here who can check that?
Where's Garrett?
Garrett unfortunately had. Oh, is he back here? Okay. So maybe somebody can check if there are any questions. I know that we're pretty much out of time, but I don't want to keep them out.
They can always email me.
No comments.
No comments right now? Okay, so then I did it right,
I have
probably.
one other question.
Yes, David.
So this district isn't big enough to support somebody in this role full-time, so it's your part-time hobby, favorite part of your job.
Yes,
How
exactly.
big would you have to be? Or, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of dollars involved for somebody to just have this be all that they do.
It is a full-time job. It really is. I've been fortunate in having partnerships like SWEP that really run themselves in terms of the clubs and the programs. But between the grant writing that I do and the managing of the buildings and writing work orders on a daily basis for the things that I see, and then trying to figure out projects to do with my Prop 39 funds, and of course I have to go through public bid process for all of that. We're not saving near as much energy as we could. When I was committed to this 50% of my time, we were saving probably $150,000 more a year than we are currently. And to me, that's really hard. I want to get back to that, but I have buildings to build. So we're kind of trying to balance it. I keep advocating for a full-time position for it. I think it really does warrant it. If you can save $100,000 to $150,000, that's certainly a decent salary.
Yeah. So in one question that was in my mind is, the saving approach seems to be strongly based on trends, like how can I save a few percent here, a few percent there. Is there also a systematic type of cross statewide or nationwide benchmarking where you would say, given certain parameters, usage, number of students, climate, temperatures, rural versus urban community, and so on, there's some kind of best practice overall out there?
Yeah.
Because I'm worried that if you're only focusing on trends, then maybe you don't know how low you could actually go.
Right. So a couple things on that. The Liberty Utilities benchmark reports that they provide to us, their big focus is what's called energy use index, and it's exactly that. It's taking into consideration the loading of the building, the climate, the size of the building, the type of building envelope, and you're really trying to target an energy use index of 20 or less in order to eventually be able to become a zero net energy building. And that's what California is really targeting for most of their schools, is that 20 range for energy use index, because that's typically what you can load your roof with solar, or you can buy clean power, or you can use ground source heat pumps in order to create more efficiency in your heating system. So that report definitely gives us that feedback. And I just recently went to a Zero Net Energy building conference for schools, and it was really fascinating. There's some very, very exciting stuff happening out there. It's a little more challenging for us in Snow Country. We don't exactly have all the same opportunities that everybody else does, but we're going to do everything we can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, there's one more question.
Oh, there's another question?
Thank you.
If it's a really important one, you can ask it.
So what do you expect the difference once we get the new building online for anything that we've looked at tonight? Like, what are your expectations for how those numbers would look different, being a new building with better materials and planning for this from ground up?
Jeremy, that's a really good question. Unfortunately, our energy use is going to go up, and it's going to go up pretty significantly. And there's a couple contributing factors to that. One is what we're replacing is modular classrooms, right? So they don't have any interior circulation space. So we're adding square footage just to deal with that alone. We're adding square footage because most of the things that we're building are specialty classrooms. So at the high school, it's the Career Tech Wing for Truckee High School. At Truckee Elementary, we're building kindergarten classrooms, which are larger in size than a regular classroom. But then the other contributing factor there is we're adding air conditioning. And that's something that we don't have in any of our older facilities. Air conditioning. Yeah, and there's some debate about, how much we need that. There's certainly times where we do. But that's going to add a pretty significant load on most of these buildings.
Okay, so here we end with a challenge.
Yeah.
to work on this. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.